Hello guys, it's your boy Justin back with another horror movie review, and today I'm reviewing the 2018 Venezuelan horror mystery film The Lake Vampire, directed by Carl Zitelmann, starring Gerardo H. Fernandez, Eduardo Gulino, and Maria Antoniette Hidalgo, and I think the main character is played by Socrates or something. Oh my god, I should have just kept the Google. The actor's name is Socrates Serrano, who plays the main character Ernesto Navarro, and you have Eduardo Gulino as Zacarias Ortega. Wow, this was a very interesting movie I watched on Tubi, right? The premise sounded very interesting to me, and I'm like, wow, there's no way this movie can be good, because it's like, wow, because it felt like, man, if this movie was good, I probably would have heard of it, but it's the thing where the movie has very mid ratings on everything, which is very weird to me because I honestly thought the movie was actually very good. Like, the movie is about divorcee writer who's struggling, which I should also mention the movie is like an hour and 42 minutes. It's about this struggling writer who writes psychological thrillers. At first, I thought he was a true crime author, right? But really, he's like a psychological thriller writer, but uses true crime as inspiration, right? There's a funny scene where he goes to he has to stop by his wife's place to get his copies of his books for a book signing, right? And she won't let him in, and she just dumps his books out in the street, in the balcony, and I don't know a lot of Spanish except for the Spanish I know from movies and TV, right? And you clearly hear him say certain he uses certain language that the subtitles for some reason translate as "no, you're ignorant." When he called her he called her a girl dog, which I think you're not allowed to say on YouTube. Apparently, you're not allowed to yell at you on YouTube anymore, which is that's a flaggable offense. So I'm like, what? My favorite videos, which I also do, are rants. I love rant videos, man. And apparently you're not allowed to do them anymore. That's BS, man. But whatever, right? Yeah. So he goes to the book signing for his cult book, which that's the problem when you watch a foreign film, right? Sometimes context is portrayed context is revealed through pronunciation, but since you're reading subtitles, when he said his book was a cult book, I thought his book was about a cult, when really he meant his book is a cult classic. Right? And he goes to the book signing, and there's only one person who shows up to sign his book, and then later the very next scene or whatever, he gets called by this cop because this female cop, to go to a crime scene where in the movie there's a serial killer on the loose called the Southern Devil, who's going around chopping the heads off kids and draining their blood, right? And they had a satanic ritual, and they found a burnt copy of one of his books that was recently signed. So it's oh shit, the serial killer visit him, but he doesn't put two and two together. Yeah. So what ends up happening is that with the help of his girlfriend, his girlfriend, who is the reason why he's getting divorced, because he cheated on her with this girl who works at a newspaper, who he uses to like get info on like current articles that he can use for his crime writing, right? Because he's not a true crime writer, but he uses true crime as like inspiration for his books, right? Um, Through her help and a former detective, he finds out about this serial killer called the Lake Vampire, or the Vampiro Del Lago, right? Which translates to like the Lake Vampire, and he meets this former detective called Jeremias Morales, played by Miguel Angel Landa, who's apparently a stand-up comedian / actor, who's like an alcoholic who pension is being denied to him because, right, and our main character promises to clear that up for him. Apparently, he has contacts in the Social Security or whatever, right? Which we never find out if that's a lie or not. And most of the movie is our main character talking with this former detective and his experiences with a serial killer called the Lake Vampire, whose MO is very eerily similar to the current murders that's going on in the city, right? Which the murders that the detective was investigating took place back in the 1970s, like I figured like 1975, right? Which the movie takes place in 2016, right? Where there's a funny scene where the main character is googling the Sovereign Devil, and like El Diablo Suicide Squad popped up in the search bar. I'm like, oh my god, it made me laugh. But yeah, like a lot of the movie takes place in like flashbacks, right? Right. Which they look good, right? And they look good, and it's like our main character is like hanging out with this detective, right? And like he learns the story of this serial killer, right? So I don't want to spoil too much about the movie, right? Because the movie is a mystery film, and it's better if you don't know how the movie ends, ends. So like the movie very much, like, people online were calling it like a combination of basically like Interview with a Vampire meets David Fincher's Zodiac, right? To me, it felt like more like a Spanish Stephen King movie, which it reminded me a lot of the Stephen King TV movie The Night Flyer, starring Miguel Ferreira, no relation to me, the guy from like Twin Peaks, right? Who died in 2017, if I remember correctly. He died like shortly after the third season of Twin Peaks, right? Where there's a Stephen King movie that he stars where it's about like a photojournalist who's working at a newspaper, who's following the trail bloodshed of the serial killer called the Night Flyer, who believes he's a vampire. So the movie felt very much like reminded me of that movie, right? But like the movie also reminded me of the other. What was that other movie that felt like a Stephen King movie? With Ethan Hawke. What was it? Not Sinister, right? With Ethan Hawke, right? Which I still need to see the sequel. So like, yeah, the movie. I really like the movie because even though, like, the movie, like, and I think like all Spanish language films have this problem where like the Spanish language is very. It's one of the Romance languages, so they're very over dramatic with the way they talk, right? And they like to use like allegories, and they talk very poetically, right? So like that's why people are criticizing the movie, that it has a lot of cliches, right? But but I don't know. I really enjoyed the movie. Like again, it very much felt like a Spanish Stephen King movie, which I like Stephen King, and I like the movie. I like the fact of the movie like where you're not sure because you're getting secondhand information, and that the main villain of the movie is played by like pretty much the same guy, right, from the flashbacks. It's not entirely clear if the movie is like a supernatural, like if the killer is supernatural, or if it's like a copycat, right? Which there's like, which this movie, I don't get how this movie is not rated at least MA on Tubi's rate TV 14, when there's a scene where there's scenes with nudity, right? Like there's a point where our main character gets told about this web address that was found at a crime scene in 1999 that the police, I guess, never thought to look up the website in 1999. So he goes on it and he sees basically like a fucking snuff film, right? Where they were saying this like chop a girl's head off and she's topless. So it's like, what the fuck? That was I thought that scene was very brutal, right? And there's also like there's a point in the movie where this is in flashback where like a cop character is interviewing this guy who knew this serial killer since he was a kid, and this old guy looks old, and he's like saying like he was basically raised by the lake vampire, right? And was basically was an orphan raised by the lake vampire who was forced to like feed the old man blood. So there's a scene where like where the creepy old man vampire is cutting the kid's fingers and is drinking the blood. So that was a very creepy scene, but that was a very creepy scene, right? Yeah. Yeah, not good. But the music, man, the music for this movie almost has like this like old like Hammer style horror movie like soundtrack, man. That really like elevates the thing. Where the movie does look like it kind of had like a middling budget, but it definitely tries to be epic. Like it tries to tell this like epic story, right? But yeah, I don't know. Like the movie, I think the movie is good. It has it does have its problems, right? Because like yeah, it is a bit like, you know, over dramatic, and like the movie, there's shit in the movie. Like the ending of this movie is still confusing me, right? And I don't know. To me, the hallmark if a movie's good or not is like, because I watched like before I went to work today, I watched like the first half an hour movie, and all day at work I was just thinking about how interesting this fucking movie is, right? And so like to me, a movie is good if you know if you just it just makes you think about it like all day, right? Or that's a sign that the movie has quality, right? So I don't know. To me, it's a 7 out of 10. But it definitely like this felt like very much like this is like the closest I've ever seen to a movie that actually kind of does the true crime stuff well. Because like a lot of when I talk about true crime, I'm talking about the true crime serial killer stuff. Because like a lot of Hollywood movies about serial killers are basically fucking Nickelodeon compared to like a lot of fucking true crime stories about like, you know, serial killers. Like a lot of the famous serial killers you're never gonna get movies of because of how fucked up they were. Like the Albert Fish, The Gray Man, which that's an unfilmable like horror movie that would make fucking it would be basically a Serbian film times 100, right? The fucked up shit he went. And then there's the other true crime serial killer story, which I'm not really into this shit, right? Because I watched. It's the thing where I heard advice because I wanted to be. I'm an aspiring writer, right? So somebody told me like, oh yeah, some writer was like, you need to read like, listen to like true crime stories to get better, right? Right, for inspiration. So I watched maybe like 2 docs on serial killers. One was the Albert Fish guy because of Norman oh my god, Norm Macdonald liked to like reference him. And the other one was the Vampire of Sacramento, which also took place in the 70s. That was in Sacramento, California, about a crazy guy who went around killing people and would drink their blood, right? This movie kind of like very much reminded me of that like true crime story, right? Which this movie, like, I swear it would be. This movie deserves like a fucking like American Hollywood remake. They would probably do if they could probably do this movie and done well. And I don't know why people say the movie's unoriginal. This is like the fucking like just because it reminds you of other shit doesn't mean it's unoriginal. Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It is fucked up. It's probably one of the darkest movies I've ever reviewed. Aside from maybe Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, which I deleted that review because I'm like, yeah, this movie's too dark to be on this channel, right? So yeah, I don't know. It's if you're a fan of horror mystery films and maybe Stephen King movies, check this out. It's for free on Tubi. So yeah, whatever. Peace.